Today, we're diving into a fascinating world that runs on a set of rules, but you won't find them written down anywhere. This is the unspoken code of Beeyard etiquette. So maybe you're thinking about keeping bees. You've got that picture in your head, right? The white suit, the calm hum of the hives, harvesting that amazing golden honey. It seems so peaceful. But hold on, there's a crucial first step that most people completely miss. Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than just buying a box of bees. There's this whole social contract that holds the entire beekeeping community together. And no, you can't just Google it. This is old school stuff, a code of conduct passed down from one beekeeper to the next. So what is this code, really? Well, it all boils down to one word: respect. Respect for the other beekeepers, respect for the land you're all sharing, and respect for the people who own that land. It's basically the rule book for getting along when resources are tight. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The very first challenge you'll face has nothing to do with your bees. It's all about everybody else's. And this is square one of the code. And here's what's so wild. In a lot of places, like Ontario, for example, there's no actual law saying how far apart bee yards have to be. None. That is exactly why this unspoken code is so critical. The community has to regulate itself. The whole system runs on mutual understanding, not legal threats. And the cornerstone of that understanding, it comes down to this number: 2 miles. That's the golden rule. The generally accepted minimum distance you should set up a new bee yard from one that's already there. It's the magic number that keeps the peace. But why 2 miles? Oh, this is not just about being a good neighbor. It's about life and death for the bees. First, there's the risk of robbing. That's when a stronger colony literally invades a weaker one to steal all their honey, often destroying the hive in the process. It's brutal. Even worse, disease. Nasty stuff like American Foulbrood can spread like wildfire between hives that are too close. That 2-mile buffer is basically a biological firewall. Okay, so how do you follow the code? It's really all about doing your homework. First, you ask the landowner, "Hey, do you know of any other bees around here?" Second, you acknowledge that someone else was there first. And third, this is the big one. If a conflict pops up and you're the new beekeeper on the block, the rule is crystal clear. You're the one who has to move. It's that simple. This whole principle of respecting others' space then builds into the bigger picture. Because this code isn't just about keeping your distance. It's about recognizing that you are all sharing a resource that is, well, finite. Beekeepers call it a bee pasture. Think of the whole landscape, all the flowers, the clover, the trees, as one big pasture. You know, just like a field can only support so many cattle before they eat all the grass, an area can only support so many bees. If you overcrowd it, nobody's bees are going to thrive. The honey production for everyone just plummets. And this is where things can get tricky. You've got your hobbyists with just a few hives. It wouldn't be cool for them to set up shop right in the middle of a prime location, basically hogging a massive resource for a tiny operation. On the other hand, you've got commercial beekeepers. These are people making their living from this. When they have an established area, that claim needs to be respected. It's all about a proportional use of that pasture. But it's not always big versus small. As our source material points out, a lot of conflict happens when you have a bunch of smaller beekeepers who could be sharing an area perfectly fine, but they just don't have the communication to do it. And that just leads to inefficiency and tension. So what's the future look like? Well, one idea is to bring this unspoken code into the 21st century. Imagine a private website just for registered beekeepers with a map showing where all the bee yards are. It would let people see the landscape, make informed decisions, and even cooperate to use the pasture way more efficiently. That could save everyone time and fuel and boost profits all around. So let's say you've found a spot, you've respected your neighbors, but you're not done. Now you have to build what might be the most important relationship of all, the one with the person whose land you're actually using. Yep, you've got to pay rent. But in the world of beekeeping, you almost never pay with cash. You pay with the very thing your bees are creating. It's a tradition, and it's a great one. It builds goodwill and a real, direct connection between the landowner and your success. The general rule of thumb couldn't be simpler. 1 pound of honey per hive per year. It's the easy-to-remember starting point for any negotiation. But again, the unspoken code is flexible. This is not a rigid law. The final amount is just an agreement between two people. It might change depending on how good the location is, the relationship you have, and just what feels fair to both of you. And here are some fantastic real-world examples. For a small hobbyist yard with less than 10 hives, maybe you give them a couple of cases of jarred honey. It's perfect for them to use or give away as gifts. But for a larger commercial yard with, say, 32 hives, a single 30-pound pail of honey is way more common. The payment is really tailored to the scale of the operation. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important part of the code. All of these rules, the distance, the sharing, the rent, they're all held together by one single thing. This quote just says it all. The beekeeping community is small and tight-knit. Word travels fast. Your reputation is everything. And failing to honor your honey rent agreement with a landowner, that is the cardinal sin of Beeyard etiquette. And this is where the consequences get really severe. When you break the code, you're not just hurting your own name, you are poisoning the well for every other beekeeper. A landowner who gets burned by one person might just refuse to let anyone put bees on their property ever again. Your actions have ripples across the entire community. Which leaves us with this final question. This honor system has worked for generations, built on handshakes and trust. But now, in a world of GPS and data, and with more and more people getting into beekeeping, is it time for this unspoken code to finally be spoken? What do we gain, and what might we lose by making the invisible visible?